must be hungry. Would you like some lunch?
You don't have to cook anything for me. I'm fine.
Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you.
What did the doctor tell her?
He said your father had to eat small, regular meals. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed, otherwise he gets indigestion.
Oh, well, what about soup and salad?
That'd be fine, thanks.
Okay. Are you hungry, David?
Yes, I am.
Here, let me help you, my dear.
Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to bother yourself.
It's no bother to me, my dear.
You must be hungry. Would you like some lunch?
You don't have to cook anything for me. I'm fine.
Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you.
What did the doctor tell her?
He said your father had to eat small, regular meals. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed, otherwise he gets indigestion.
Oh, well, what about soup and salad?
That'd be fine, thanks.
Okay. Are you hungry, David?
Yes, I am.
Here, let me help you, my dear.
Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to bother yourself.
It's no bother to me, my dear.
You must be hungry. Would you like some lunch?
You don't have to cook anything for me. I'm fine.
Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you.
What did the doctor tell her?
He said your father had to eat small, regular meals. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed, otherwise he gets indigestion.
Oh, well, what about soup and salad?
That'd be fine, thanks.
Okay. Are you hungry, David?
Yes, I am.
Here, let me help you, my dear.
Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to bother yourself.
It's no bother to me, my dear.
You must be hungry. You don't have to cook for me. You mustn't forget what the doctor told you. He said your father had to eat small, regular meals.
Dad, when do you have to be back?
David, you mustn't eat your soup yet. Let it cool first.
I don't have to be back at any particular time. I've got to take care of some business, but I don't have to be home to do it. I've got my laptop.
David, are you eating regularly? You must make sure to eat enough.
Do you have a laptop computer, Dad? You're going to have to show it to me sometime.
David, you have to make an appointment with your doctor. You must need an ear examination. You haven't answered one of my questions.
Gee, Mom, were you talking to me? I thought there must be some little kid at the table.
You're right, my big grown-up son. I have to remind myself you're not a child anymore.
That's okay, Mom. I have to remind myself of that all the time.
Dad, when do you have to be back?
David, you mustn't eat your soup yet. Let it cool first.
I don't have to be back at any particular time. I've got to take care of some business, but I don't have to be home to do it. I've got my laptop.
David, are you eating regularly? You must make sure to eat enough.
Do you have a laptop computer, Dad? You're going to have to show it to me sometime.
David, you have to make an appointment with your doctor. You must need an ear examination. You haven't answered one of my questions.
Gee, Mom, were you talking to me? I thought there must be some little kid at the table.
You're right, my big grown-up son. I have to remind myself you're not a child anymore.
That's okay, Mom. I have to remind myself of that all the time.
Dad, when do you have to be back?
David, you mustn't eat your soup yet. Let it cool first.
I don't have to be back at any particular time. I've got to take care of some business, but I don't have to be home to do it. I've got my laptop.
David, are you eating regularly? You must make sure to eat enough.
Do you have a laptop computer, Dad? You're going to have to show it to me sometime.
David, you have to make an appointment with your doctor. You must need an ear examination. You haven't answered one of my questions.
Gee, Mom, were you talking to me? I thought there must be some little kid at the table.
You're right, my big grown-up son. I have to remind myself you're not a child anymore.
That's okay, Mom. I have to remind myself of that all the time.
Dad, when do you have to be back? I don't have to be back at any particular time. I've got to take care of some business, but I don't have to be home to do it.
I hear you've got a new girlfriend. What's she like?
She's wonderful. She's intelligent and attractive and lots of fun to be with.
I'm sure she must be a nice girl.
When are we going to meet her?
You'll have to wait till this evening. She must finish her homework first.
You mean she's still in school?
No, Dad. Well, yes. You see, she's studying English as a second language at LAI. She's from Argentina.
Oh, I see. Then you met her at work.
Yes, we met in the cafeteria.
I hear you've got a new girlfriend. What's she like?
She's wonderful. She's intelligent and attractive and lots of fun to be with.
I'm sure she must be a nice girl.
When are we going to meet her?
You'll have to wait till this evening. She must finish her homework first.
You mean she's still in school?
No, Dad. Well, yes. You see, she's studying English as a second language at LAI. She's from Argentina.
Oh, I see. Then you met her at work.
Yes, we met in the cafeteria.
I hear you've got a new girlfriend. What's she like?
She's wonderful. She's intelligent and attractive and lots of fun to be with.
I'm sure she must be a nice girl.
When are we going to meet her?
You'll have to wait till this evening. She must finish her homework first.
You mean she's still in school?
No, Dad. Well, yes. You see, she's studying English as a second language at LAI. She's from Argentina.
Oh, I see. Then you met her at work.
Yes, we met in the cafeteria.
I'm sure she must be a nice girl. When are we going to meet her? You'll have to wait until this evening. She must finish her homework first. Hi, and welcome to Unit 10 of Book 3, where today we're going to be talking about the words mustn't, that's must not, and don't have to, do not have to. You will remember that we have run into these words before. In Book 2, Unit 2, we talked about the word must. And perhaps, I hope, you will remember that must expresses necessity. Let's take a look at some examples of that. David must turn left on Vermont Street. David has no choice in this. He must turn left on Vermont Street. Maybe a one-way street. Kelsey must take her medicine. Kelsey has no choice in this. She is sick, and both the doctor and her mother Donna tell her that she must take her medicine. Must also expresses obligation. You must attend your sister's wedding. This is an obligation of your family. You have no choice. It's your sister's wedding, and no matter what else you want to do, you must attend your sister's wedding. Understand? Obligation. Here's another obligation. John must go to the office every day. It's his job. It's the way he supports his family. He's promised Mr. Maxwell and Renee and all the other people at TAG Engineering, and he must go to the office every day. So that's must. It expresses necessity or obligation. Now, you will also remember that have to also expresses necessity or obligation. This we had in Book 2, Unit 6. David has to turn left on Vermont Street. Means the same as must. Kelsey has to take her medicine. You have to attend your sister's wedding. John has to go to the office every day. Okay? So, must and have to both express necessity or obligation. As I told you, Book 2, Unit 6, right? Now, in the affirmative, in other words, statements that are positive, that do not include not, right? In the affirmative, both must and have to express necessity or obligation. Now, in the negative, however, is an important difference. Must not expresses strong prohibition. If you hear must not, that means don't. Let's look at some examples of how must not expresses strong prohibition. No, don't. David must not turn left on Vermont Street. This means that if David were to turn left on Vermont Street, if David does turn left on Vermont Street, something very bad might happen. If Vermont Street's a one-way street, you remember, he might have a bad accident. This says, Kelsey must not take her medicine. This means, again, something bad would happen. I told you the last time we talked about this sentence, maybe someone gave her the wrong prescription. She must not take her medicine. Okay? Students must not bring guns to school. That's a strong prohibition, a strong rule. No guns in school. Students must not bring guns to school. Do you understand strong prohibition now? Do not have to, however, tells us that something is neither a necessity nor an obligation. Not a necessity, not an obligation if we have the phrase do not have to. So, for example, David doesn't have to turn left on Vermont Street. There are many other ways that David can get where he's going. He can turn left on another street. He doesn't have to. There's no necessity for him to turn left on Vermont Street. Kelsey doesn't have to take her medicine. She's already better. Even if there's medicine left in the bottle, she doesn't have to take it. There's no necessity for her to take it. The students don't have to bring their books to class. Now here, remember how different they must not bring guns, but they don't have to bring their books to class. In other words, they're not obligated. There's no obligation for them to bring their books to class. It's a much less serious negative, right? So, let's review this. In the affirmative, must expresses necessity or obligation. The negative, however, must not expresses strong prohibition. Don't do it. In the affirmative, have to also expresses necessity or obligation. In the negative, don't have to expresses that there is not a necessity or an obligation. In other words, it's okay not to do it. You can do it or not do it as you feel is okay. Okay? No necessity, no obligation. Now, in the past tense, in the affirmative, had to expresses necessity or obligation. In fact, there is no past of the word must. Actually, the past tense of must is had to. I must see the doctor yesterday. I had to see him 3 times last week, and I must go tomorrow. Had to is the past tense of must, as well as the past tense of have to. Okay? In the negative, didn't have to expresses that there was no necessity or obligation. I didn't have to go to the doctor. I didn't have to take my books to school. Okay? Kelsey says, I didn't have to take my medicine after I got better. Had to expresses necessity in the past. Didn't have to expresses no necessity, no obligation. Now, here is one last use of must. Must can be used when someone is making a logical guess. For example, do you remember in the dialogue, Donna is hostessing her mother and her father, Mr. and Mrs. Campbell, who have flown in from Washington. Donna says to them, "You must be hungry." This is in dialogue 1. Donna is making a logical guess because she knows that it has been a long time since her mother and father have eaten. So she figures they must be hungry. Let's take a look at another one of these logical guesses. Remember our bride here that we've seen so often. Now, who do you suppose that woman in green is next to the bride? We don't know, right? There's nothing here that actually tells us who this woman is, but we can make a guess that the woman in green must be the bride's mother. You understand? It's a guess, but it's based on some good reasons. It's a logical guess. That woman in green, it must be the bride's mother. Now, must can also be used when someone is making up a theory about how something happened. Do you ever see a detective show or a police show? They always are saying, it must have happened over there, or it must have happened like this. In fact, the thief must have broken in by the window. Must is also used to express a theory, a speculation, also kind of like logical guesses about how something must have happened. Okay? I think now would be a very good time for us to listen again to Dialogue 1. And I want you to listen very carefully for all of the examples of must or must not, of have to or didn't have to or don't have to, all of the forms that we've just been talking about as Donna is having this conversation with her mom and dad.
You must be hungry. Would you like some lunch?
You don't have to cook anything for me. I'm fine.
Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you.
What did the doctor tell her?
He said your father had to eat small regular meals. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed, otherwise he gets indigestion.
Oh, well, what about soup and salad?
That'd be fine, thanks.
Are you hungry, David?
Yes, I am.
Here, let me help you, my dear.
Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to bother yourself.
It's no bother to me, my dear.
Okay, so did you hear all of those examples? Now, what I'd actually like to do right now is let's listen to some of the individual lines. And I'll explain a little bit more as we do that about the shades of meaning of these phrases. Okay? Let's first, and I'll actually show you the line too. Let's first listen to Donna talking to her parents.
You must be hungry. Would you like some lunch?
Okay? Donna says, "You must be hungry." Now, what is this? This is a logical guess. as I had told you just a minute ago. Donna knows that her parents haven't eaten in a long time. Whenever their meal on the plane was, it's been several hours ago. So her logical guess is, you must be hungry. Okay? Now, let's listen to Mr. Campbell.
You don't have to cook anything for me. I'm fine.
What does he say to his daughter? Oh, you don't have to cook anything for me. What's this? This is a statement that there is no necessity or obligation. It's not a necessity because he's apparently not feeling very hungry. And there's no obligation because he doesn't expect Donna to cook for him. You don't have to cook anything for me. He could even be hungry. There could be a necessity, but he doesn't feel that Donna has an obligation. So, no necessity or obligation. Now, let's try another one. In this case, let's listen to Mrs. Campbell.
Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you.
What did the doctor tell her?
What does she say to her husband? She says, Arthur, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you. What's this? That's right, it's a prohibition. You mustn't forget. Mrs. Campbell wants to make sure that her husband does not forget the important information that his doctor has given him. So it's a prohibition against his forgetting. Okay? Now, let's listen to the next two statements.
He said your father had to eat small regular meals. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed, otherwise he gets indigestion.
Okay, now did you hear that? The first thing that she tells Donna is that the doctor said, your father had to, past tense for necessity, right? Eat small, regular meals. That's necessity. The doctor said that Arthur Campbell had to eat small, regular meals. Okay? Now, what else did she say right after that? She then said he mustn't, in other words, her husband, Mr. Campbell, eat large meals before he goes to bed. Mustn't, a strong prohibition. He must not eat large meals before he goes to bed. Otherwise, he gets indigestion. In other words, an upset stomach. Okay? Now, let's, for our final line here from the dialogue, let's listen to Donna.
Oh, that's okay, Mom. You don't have to bother yourself.
It's no bother to me, my dear.
What does she say to her mother? You don't have to bother yourself. In other words, to help her cook, right? In other words, what does she say? There's no obligation. You don't have to bother yourself. Okay, I hope that makes it clear enough for us now to go on to some exercises. Okay? So, I'd like you in this exercise that's coming up to fill in the blank with must not or don't have to. Okay? Let's take a look at the first one, for example. Okay? Donna says to Clayton, Clayton, you blank play with knives. Oops. Oh my. Donna says, Clayton, you must not play with knives. Right? It's a strong prohibition against this little boy playing with sharp, dangerous knives, right? You must not play with knives. You understand? Let's go on. Okay. He blank go to the doctor. He is feeling better. I'll say he looks like he's feeling pretty good, doesn't he? He blank go to the doctor. He is feeling better. What phrase are you going to fill in the blanks? Watch out now. Remember, this is third person singular. He good. He doesn't have to go to the doctor. There's no necessity for him to go to the doctor. He is feeling better. It's not a case of a prohibition, so we use have to. In this case, he doesn't have to. Okay? Now, how about this one? I blank forget to do my homework. Okay? This one would be must not. I must not forget to do my homework. In other words, it's very important that I remember to do my homework. Certainly wouldn't be I don't have to forget. It's I mustn't or must not forget to do my homework. Strong prohibition against forgetting. Okay, now how about this one? This one says, you blank introduce me to Peter. We met last week. Okay? You blank introduce me to Peter. We met last week. So, which one? Good. You don't have to introduce me to Peter. We met last week. No necessity or obligation to introduce me to somebody I've already met. Okay, now how about this one? Oh, Donna talking to her children again. Kelsey, you blank eat that soup. It's too hot. You should know just from the way I read that, right? Kelsey, you must not eat that soup. It's too hot. You'll burn your tongue. Okay? Strong prohibition against eating hot soup, too hot soup. But now, how about this one? This time, Donna says, oh, that's okay, Kelsey. If you aren't hungry, you blank eat that soup. Which one is this? That's okay, Kelsey. If you aren't hungry, you don't have to eat that soup. Now, this is a good illustration of the difference, right? In the first case, we use must not eat that soup because Kelsey would burn her mouth on the hot soup. In this case, we say Kelsey doesn't have to eat the soup because there's no necessity to eat it if she isn't hungry. Okay? Let's move on. Oh, here's Monica. Monica blank go to school today. It's Sunday. Okay? Which phrase are we going to put in the blank here? Monica doesn't, I hope you got that, third person singular, present tense. Monica doesn't have to go to school today. It's Sunday. No obligation or necessity to go to school on a Sunday. But how about this one? Monica blank go to school today. She's very sick. Uh-oh. The doctor says, Monica blank. Monica must not go to school today. She's very sick, and there's a prohibition against her going to school when she's sick because she could get other people sick too. Okay, how about this? You blank smoke in the classroom. Wouldn't that be terrible if I was up here smoking in the classroom while I was doing the lesson? I and you, blank, smoke in the classroom. Good. You mustn't or must not smoke in the classroom. Okay? I should think that would help a lot. Now, we're going to do a different exercise now. We are going to put these sentences in the past. Okay? We're going to put them into the past tense. Let's take a look at this example. Okay? Here's our architect friend. I must work hard, says the architect. Now, how would we put that sentence into the past tense? I had to work hard. There is no past tense for must other than had to. Okay? I had to work hard. Let's do another one. We have to leave. There's a fire. What's the past tense of we have to leave? Good. We had to leave. Let's try another one. They must sell their house quickly. I guess so. They, past tense. They had to sell their house quickly. You saw how much a hurry they were in, didn't you? How about this one? She must see the doctor, past tense. She had to see the doctor. These guys, really, they don't have to work. Past tense. It's all in the helper verb, isn't it, folks? They don't have to work in the past would be they didn't have to work. They look like they're having a good time, don't they? How about this one? I must do the exercise again. Oh, I did it once. I must do it again. How about past tense? I had to do the exercise again. If it were negative, what would we say? I didn't have to do the exercise again, wouldn't we? Now, make these sentences into questions. For example, you must work hard. How do we put that into the interrogative form? We're going to, of course, invert must and the subject pronoun. So, you must work hard becomes, must you work hard? Do you have to work hard? Same difference, as they say in English. I always found that a strange phrase. He must stop smoking. How do we turn that into a question? Good. Must he stop smoking? I think so. Look, the smoke is turning him orange. Must he stop smoking? How about this one? They have to study tonight. How do you make that into a question? Do they have to study tonight? We didn't do any drills on this. I trust that by now you're getting very good at making questions using those helper verbs, especially do. Do they have to study tonight? How about this one? We will have to go home after the show. Oh, look, now playing American English. We will have to go home after the show. Make that into a question, please. Children always ask this. Will we have to go home after the show? Again, you invert the subject and the verb, in this case, the future tense. Will we, then our verb have to, go home after the show. He had to cook dinner for himself. Make that into a question, please. Helper verb is did. Did he have to cook dinner for himself? She must finish her homework. Make that into a question, please. Must she finish her homework? Yes. Short answer. She must. Oh, we know this guy, don't we? They had to speak to the teacher. Make that into a question, please. Did they have to speak to the teacher? If any of these questions are tricky for you, please play this exercise again and again until you understand it. You have to do that. You must do that if you want to learn English. Now, let's make more sentences like this one, okay? She doesn't have to buy blank, but she must buy blank. I'll give you the foodstuffs to fill in the blank. She doesn't have to buy blank blank, but she must buy blank blank. We're going to work with our count and non-count nouns in this too, aren't we? She doesn't have to buy any eggs, but she must buy some flour. Okay, you see that? She doesn't have to buy any eggs, but she must buy some flour. Let's go to another one. Our words, our foodstuffs, our food words in this sentence are cheese and milk. Remember, you're making more sentences just like the first one. So, she doesn't have to buy blank blank. Remember our first word in that phrase, right? She doesn't have to buy any cheese, but she must buy some milk. Any cheese, some milk. Let's do another one. She doesn't have to buy blank. She must buy blank. Butter and honey. Okay? She doesn't have to buy, but she must buy. She doesn't have to buy any butter, but she must buy some honey. Pears and oranges. She doesn't have to buy any pears, but she must buy some oranges. And notice how here it's clear that don't have to and must belong together. Bananas and beans. She doesn't have to buy any bananas, but she must buy some beans. Okay, last one is chicken and beef. Chicken, obviously the meat that comes from those birds that lay eggs and run around in the farmyard, and beef from those big animals that go moo. She doesn't have to buy any chicken, but she must buy some beef. Remember, we use any because it's a negative. Doesn't have to buy any chicken. Some is because it is actually an actual quantity. Okay. And now, for our last exercise, I am going to bring the TV set back here, but we're not going to watch anything. What we're going to do here is practice understanding those different categories that I was telling you about. You're going to tell me, which is it? Is it a logical guess? Is it that it isn't necessary? Is it a prohibition? Is it an obligation? Or is it a necessity? You must be hungry. What's that? Remember? Donna deduces. Great word. Donna figures out that her parents must be hungry, and it's a logical guess. Okay, let's try another one. You don't have to cook anything for me, says Mr. Campbell. Which is it? A logical guess, it isn't necessary, a prohibition, an obligation, or a necessity? It isn't necessary. Or there's no obligation. Let's try another one. Arthur, says Mrs. Campbell, you mustn't forget what the doctor told you. What is it? Logical guess, it isn't necessary, prohibition, obligation, necessity. Mustn't is a prohibition. Arthur mustn't forget what the doctor told him. He said your father had to eat small, regular meals. Logical guess, it isn't necessary, a prohibition, an obligation, a necessity. The doctor said your father, Arthur here, had to eat small, regular meals is a necessity. It's necessary that Arthur eat small, regular meals so that he doesn't get indigestion from eating too much late at night. He mustn't eat large meals before he goes to bed. Mustn't is a logical guess. It isn't necessary, a prohibition, an obligation, or a necessity. You tell me. It's a prohibition. By the way, have you ever seen that word or heard that word before? Well, in the 20s, in the years of the 1920s, here in the United States, they would not allow people. The law was passed, actually an amendment to the Constitution, banning people from drinking alcohol. Alcohol couldn't be drunk, it couldn't be sold. There was a prohibition against alcohol. They said you must not buy, sell, or drink alcohol. Didn't work, but it was called prohibition. Same word. Verb, to prohibit. You don't have to bother yourself. Excuse me, it looks like that's kind of gone off the screen, but you don't have to bother yourself, on my account. Let's just do that. You don't have to bother yourself. It isn't necessary. And with that, we'll dissolve the TV. And I think that we have come to the end of our lesson. You don't have to watch anymore. But you mustn't worry. I'll be back in the next lesson to teach you more American English here at LEI.